Yeah, man. Shout out to Tisha the Braid.
Subscribe to me. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tisha the Brave. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are doing okay. I have leftover happy birthday situations and stuff like that from my cousin's birthday party that we threw at my house. So I'm sorry if the decoration is an eyesore for you. Today we are introducing a whole new segment to my channel. This is going to be Cosmo Talk, where we talk all things cosmos, astrology, all of those good vibrational things. Before we get into the video, people, subscribe to me if this is your first time here. Hello, welcome. Subscribe to me, and join the Bravers, which is the family name for my subscribers. So let's get into the video, shall we? Okay. There will be timestamps down below because I don't want to bore people who want to come for this video for certain information and they want to know exactly where that is. So there will be timestamps below if you're here for one section of the video. But if you're nice, please stay for the entire video. I mean, it really helps me out. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and all that good stuff. So yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to start off with how I actually initially got into astrology to begin with. If you guys don't know already, if you're new here, my dad is actually a pastor. I grew up in the church. I grew up in this house, and everything about this house is very spiritual. Everything about the vibrate, I'm getting tingles as I say this and surges as I say this. I'll get into that in a moment too. But everything about this house is very spiritual to me. I grew up in this house where every day before I went to school, I had to pray with my dad. I had to pray with my family. We talked about Jesus before I left the home. Like, this is stuff that my personal friends probably didn't know about me. But before I left the house each morning, my dad and I did devotion. And that's only because my mom was at work during those hours. So I grew up with my dad and I having this connection where we talked about Jesus every day. And so I go to church weekly. I still go to church weekly. These things haven't changed so much, so I'm still very much a Christian, but I do dabble into astrology, and astrology is now a huge part of my life, as well as numerology and life path numbers and all sorts of other things. But I will get into all of that in later on down the line. So just to give you a background, that's where I started from. There was a point in my life where I went through depression. I have a whole video about that I'll link down below to give you the whole in-depth of that story. And basically my spirituality was kind of in and out because of the things and the circumstances that happened to me as a little kid. And with saying all of that, I was clinging on to the things that I knew were spiritual and religious, and at the same time I didn't connect with it at the same time. It was almost like I knew what I would have to do, but my faith wasn't strong enough to kind of latch on at the same time. So there were parts of my life where once I came out of depression, even knowing what I did my whole life was not enough for me to feel connected to God. So I would pray, I would do all of these things, I would read the Bible and all of those things, but there was still something a little bit missing. I didn't feel physically feel anything that resembled what I was reading in, like, the book of Acts, for example, where the Holy Spirit was very present. And some people would call this source energy, some people would call this the universe or divine or whatever you guys called it. I didn't feel the Holy Spirit. So even when I got out of the depression and I was very much having a good relationship with God, it wasn't like I felt anything. It wasn't until this one time when my parents, and this was last year, my parents and my sister went to Mauritius. That's where my family are from. And they went to Mauritius and they were there and I was at home alone, and very much an introvert, okay? I know I have extrovert tendencies. My Leo rising is very dominant. So yeah, I came across this random thing online. I don't remember exactly what it was that brought me there, but I then stumbled onto Cafe Astrology because of this thing. I typed in my birth information and whatnot, and it blew my mind. And this was the gateway drug to astrology. This was literally how I got hooked onto astrology. So I went on there and I looked, and it was telling my business. I'm like, how could it possibly know that this is how I am? How could it possibly know that this was this? As far as I'm concerned, astrology was just Pisces. It wasn't my moon sign, it wasn't the Mars, my Venus. All I knew at the time was just that I was a Pisces, and that was it. I didn't know that there was moon signs and all of these things. I looked into it and I'm like, this is accurate. And I tried to think about this, and I'm like, hold on, if I believe all of this, then, and I also believe all of this, then what? I'm confused and I'm lost, and I'm trying to juggle the two. It doesn't really make. I was saying to myself, to believe in both of these things don't really make sense, does it? So at the time I was just like, oh gosh, okay, I'm confused now, because I thought that this was of the devil. I thought this was all Satan, and as my parents would say, jab, 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 jab. If you're Crow, you know that word means the devil. And growing up, if anything bad happened, it's always jab. You know, there was stuff that was happening, and I was saying, my natal chart says this. So how, wait, I was confused, and I was looking at this, and I was like, but if it says this, and I'm actually doing this, then this could be possibly right. And at the minute, my balance was going like this. And slowly but surely, as I kept reading the Bible and everything, it kind of went a little like this. And this is where I'm at right now. And here I am. So, just to let you know, I'm still very much a Christian. Sometimes I do say stupid things online, and sometimes I do swear, and sometimes I do stupid things online. The basic principles and the foundation of where I grew up and how I grew up and my faith is all based in Christianity. I'm still very much a believer in Jesus. Now, how do you now balance the two? How do you explain astrology and Christianity at the same time? Well, let me tell you this. If I believe that God created the universe, which I do, if I believe that God created the planets, which I do, then I don't see why these planets and things cannot affect me. If the moon can affect huge tides of water in and out and all that good stuff, then why is it that the moon can't affect me, which is 70% water? I don't see why it can't affect me. I believe that Christianity these days is so westernized, it's so about tradition and not necessarily about what's in the book itself, that we've steered away from a lot of the things that we see. So the Holy Spirit, for example, is a very dominant and prominent thing in the Bible. Very dominant, especially in the New Testament where it came about. And the feelings and the things that happen when you're spiritually aligned are the things that are going to happen in the book of Acts. And I'll list some of those things down below, just so that people who aren't familiar with that can see and can know, right? So I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is so yeah, you will have these spiritual experiences that are outer worldly or whatever, and these are equivalent to me from the Holy Spirit. And I would also say this, what about the precious stones in the Bible that could mimic crystal? The Levites used to go into the sanctuaries and the temples. They would have precious stones all over the tablets, and I'm saying to myself, if these stones and these crystals have properties, then why is it that we look at this and we think this is of, like, you know, a pagan background, or this is from a new age background or whatever? In my opinion, God created these things to help. He created these things to help. This is another way to find out how to help. The natal chart to me shows me where I'm going wrong in life. It tells me where my squares are, and I'll get into that in other videos, but it tells me where my challenging aspects are. It tells me where I find things most easiest. All of these things are here to help. Also, another thing I want to equate to the Bible and astrology and Christianity: 12 zodiac signs, 12 tribes of Israel. With every tribe of Israel has a different characteristic. Every zodiac sign has different characteristics. You tell me if these things do not align. There's so many symbols and signs and numerology patterns in the Bible as well. So that's how so yeah, and so I'm not here to preach about the Bible and astrology and how it comes together. If you guys want a video like that, I can go more in depth in that. But what I'm saying is that's where I'm at right now. That's how I balance the two. That's how I got into astrology, and this is where I am now. And I'm not trying to say that what I believe is right. I don't believe that you should believe things just because I'm saying them. I would say look into things yourself and then come to your own conclusion. I'm not trying to be a spirit of confusion right now. I know there's a lot of Christians that will probably look at me and shun me for believing the things I do, but I just believe them. I just do. And if the spirit leads me to think that this is something other than this, that this is wrong, then I'll be the first one to admit that. I have no problem admitting where I believe, what I believe in, and where I believe it. And it's a very can I just say, this is very nerve-wracking for me to even say, with my dad being who he is, because the reputation that he has in my own community, particularly in my ethnic background community, is a big deal. It's very much a me thing, and I have to be Tisha the Brave right now and say that this is exactly how I believe, and this wasn't from anybody else. This is literally my own beliefs. So now let's move on from my background to some of the basics of astrology, because this is what I ultimately want to do. I just wanted to give you a nice overview and a nice background on who I am and what I do, and I'm gonna give you a nice list, and now I'm gonna give you like the fundamentals of astrology. This is the basic big three that you guys should know. So everybody should know their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign. Let's cover the sun sign really quickly. The sun sign is ultimately the season you're born in. So I'm a Pisces. I was born on February 28th, which makes me a Pisces, and that's only because the sun at the time was in the position of the Pisces, in the atmosphere, in the cosmos. Okay, your sun sign is ultimately who you're trying to be throughout your life. This is something I picked up from Queer Cosmo, so shout out to you, because I watch a lot of his videos to learn a lot about the cosmos as well. But ultimately, he was saying that the sun sign is basically who you're trying to be throughout your life. You're trying to be your sun sign throughout your life. So with me, being a Pisces, we're the most spiritual of the zodiac. We are the most empathetic of the zodiac. We are here to help others. We are very much sensitive to the world and sensitive to everybody else around us. In our true nature, we are just here to help others. That is who we are as people, and that's what we're trying to embody. That's who we're trying to be. The next part is your moon sign. That is your emotional, intuitive side of yourself. So when you were born, the moon was in a certain position, and that is your moon sign. Your moon sign is basically, so your emotional, intuitive part, as I just said. My moon sign is in Taurus, which means that I have certain traits of a Taurus. It's my emotional, intuitive sign. Intuition always tells me on a regular basis that I must make schedules for myself, so that I know exactly what I'm doing. And that's very true to a Taurus. That's very true to an earth sign, being scheduled. My emotional intuition side is that when I'm going through something, I tend to eat too much. Tauruses and food is like a big thing. Like, Tauruses love food. It's just a stereotype of that sign in general. And also, I have a part of me that doesn't want to do anything ever. Like, if I'm having an off day, I make sure that I rest and I take a lazy time off. That is part of the Taurus sign as well. They say that your moon sign is truly who you are. And they say that that is the emotional depth of yourself. That is what it is right there, the emotional part of you. So pay attention to when you're doing something that involves a lot of emotion. Like, your moon sign is often the thing that kind of peeks out of it. Okay, so the next thing is one of my favorite things. It's the rising sign. Rising sign is what you show the rest of the world first. When people first meet me, they do not believe I'm a Pisces. They don't believe it. They believe I'm a fire sign. They always do, because my extroverted side just comes out whenever I meet people. That's my Leo rising. My Leo rising. My rising is in Leo. That's the part I show the world the most. It's only when you have an in-depth conversation is when you can really truly sense the Pisces in me. So whenever I meet certain people, I guess their signs. Sometimes because they get so comfortable around me, I can get their sun sign like this. But sometimes I guess their rising sign really well, because your rising is what you greet people. So you could be a Virgo, for example, but if you have an Aries rising, you're going to show the kiddish side of you first to the rest of the world, even if your true nature is to be quite shy. Not quite shy, but quite reserved. That's just Virgo nature. But if you have an Aries rising, you're going to be like a little kid. You're going to be a fire sign. You're going to be dominant a little bit. You're going to show that fiery side of you, because that's what you tend to show people the most. Maybe when you're by yourself, you're a little bit more reserved. So hopefully you guys learn a little bit about your sun, your moon, and your rising. How you find that out, I would go to Cafe Astrology, and the reason I'm saying that is because when you plug in the information, you need to plug in your date of birth, the city you were born in, and the time. Now with Cafe Astrology, you don't need the time to find out your sun and your moon. Okay, but to find out your rising, you will always need the time. So if you know the time you were born, the exact time you were born, then you should definitely put that in and plug it in correctly to find out your sun, moon, and rising. Otherwise, if you don't know that, you'll only get your sun and your moon. Cool. So now that we've covered the basis of that, I did go on Instagram and I asked people to give me questions. So I'm gonna answer that right now. I'm just gonna pick up my phone. You guys should definitely follow me on Instagram, because therefore I can answer questions. I have polls on there all the time. So the first question is, how does astrology and Christianity work? I feel like I answered that at the very beginning, but just a quick overview. For me, there are a lot of things that align, like the spiritual feeling of just knowing who you are is a very divine thing in itself. And I feel like I feel the Holy Spirit's presence all the time whenever I look into my charts, or whenever I meditate, and all of these things. So yes, there's also that, and also the 12 zodiac signs, the 12 tribes of Israel, incense, burning sage, like stuff like that. Just, and that's not even astrology, but it's just other spiritual practices that we put into place. But I feel like I really did answer a lot of that, so I'm going to move on to the next question already. Somebody asks, what sign placement is the most important to know? I don't think there's one placement that is very important, but I would say that the big three, the sun, the moon, the rising, very, very important. Those gives you the basic fundamentals of who you are. But then I would say your Mars, which is your physical energy, your physical, how do you physically do things? That's your Mars. And then your Venus, how do you love? How do you love? How do you show love? Okay, and then we have, when was the last time you had an astro projection? For those of you who don't know what an astro projection is, it is an out of body experience, and I will tell you that I had one today. Whew. Okay, so part of the reason I get so nervous about talking about things like this again is just about my family's reputation and my dad and who he is. But like but it's true, I have these all the time, particularly when I meditate. And I meditate to these beautiful sound frequencies, and I can get into sound healing in another topic or whatever. But yeah, there's these beautiful sound frequencies that I meditate to, and whenever I'm manifesting and I say the things I say out loud, I don't really meditate in silence. For me, I need to talk. That's very much a Taurus thing too. I'm a Taurus moon. My emotional side of me is a talker. So I talk and I sing and I say these things, and when I do and I'm closing my eyes, it's like my body is outside of itself. It's like my body is moving and I'm not moving it. At one point I felt so out of body that my hair started moving by itself. through the sound energies and the sound vibrations, and I felt like my whole body was kind of leaving my body and I was in some next dimension. This happens all the time to me. I also feel it every day. I have these surges of energy that just literally rush through my body. One time this happened to me when my parents were away again, and I feel like whenever people are away from me, I have the time to do all my spiritual things without distractions. So it makes sense that I had all of these things, and I was having this surge that it was so dominant in me that I had to hold on to the sink. I almost fell flat and faint because whatever this energy was, it was so divine that I almost fainted. It was like, wow. And I've also, whenever I ask God to surround me, and I ask God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit to surround me, I feel a physical presence sweep over my entire body every single time, whether that is meditation, whether that is me praying on my knees, whether I'm doing prostrate on the floor. Like, all of that is real, and I literally feel it, and my body doesn't feel there, but I know it's there. Okay, so there's another one. Why are certain signs misunderstood? I would say certain signs are misunderstood. There's two answers to that. One, stereotypes of every sign, and two, because your sign doesn't get along with everybody. I'm a Pisces. My favorite sign, the sign that I get along with the most, is the Virgo. And that's just true to me. There are other Pisces that cannot stand Virgos. But remember, you have got your moon sign, your rising sign, your Mars, your Venus, your Jupiter, your Saturn, your all of this. You're not going to like everybody. The sign that I tend to disagree with the most, it doesn't mean that I dislike them completely, but the sign that I disagree with the most tends to be a Sagittarius. It's just, we just don't, not all the time would I get along with it. It's just one of those things. People are misunderstood, period. We're misunderstood, period. And it's because we're very much individuals, and you will not get along with every sign on a mass scale. You can get along with the individual Sagittarius, or the individual Libra, or the individual Capricorn, or the individual Aries, but maybe not all of them. I have a Gemini friend who sometimes I'm just like, he's a lot, you know, he's annoying. But on the flip side, I have another Gemini friend who I love. You understand? So it's like, it will just happen like that. And also, if people are heartbroken by these people, it's like, oh my god, I'm heartbroken. Now I hate all Capricorns, or now I hate all Aries, or whatever. Which sign you think would be a bad friend? Which sign do you think, in my personal experiences, the worst friends for Tisha it has always been a Sagittarius. Hands down for me. But that doesn't mean that I hate all Sagittariuses. That doesn't mean that all Sagittariuses are not my friends. That's not true. I have Sag friends. I have Sag family who I get along with well. It's just that in my personal life, that has been true to me. But then again, I don't believe that certain signs can be bad friends. I really do believe it's down to the individual, and honestly how hurt they are, and how hurt they've been, and how less challenging their life is. And I will get into that in another video. We're gonna talk real in depth about certain things. So guys, that is me, that is my time. In the comment sections down below, let me know, one, if you enjoyed this first episode of Cosmo Talk, and two, what you want to see in episode 2, because I have some ideas, but I want to go with what majority is saying, okay? I am now offering services to people to read through your entire natal chart with you. Not only to read through your natal chart, but to tell you your challenging aspects, to tell you the most powerful parts of yourself, overall what the purpose of your life is. I've done this for many people, and I'm now offering services to the greater good, okay? So if you guys want to DM me in my Instagram, I will talk prices with you, I will talk all sorts with you, and we can talk about the cosmos further, okay? So I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. I love you guys so much. Bye, love hearts and all that good stuff.